So, good evening. I'm very happy to be here. Happy to be back in St. Petersburg. And I'm very flattered to see that so many are curious about Amos Rex. So let me try to tell you a little bit about that. So let's start with our beautiful logo. At least I'm pretty fond of it. It's based on the old neon signs in the old part of Amos Rex. You will understand it better a little bit later. But we have to start with this gentleman. He is Amos, Dr. Amos Anderson, our founder. He was born in 1878 and he died in 1961, so quite a long time ago. He was a self-made businessman, very successful businessman. He made his fortune first in real estate. You know, like many self-made businessmen do, real estate is good business when you are gifted in it. So this happened around the turn of the century, when Finland was still a part of the Russian Empire. And then he started buying printing works and newspapers and so on, back in the time when it was still good business to give out newspapers. But what he was really important in and proud of was being a patron of the arts. Not so much a collector of art, but a patron of arts. He didn't have any children, so he created a foundation and left his fortune to this foundation called Konstsamfundet. That's Swedish, it means a union of the arts. And this foundation has as its purpose to give grants to different cultural projects, but mainly to maintain an art museum in Helsinki and another one in the Turku archipelago where Amos Anderson was born. So something called Amos Anderson Art Museum opened some years after his death in 1965, and it worked until 2017 in the office and apartment building that Amos Anderson had built in 1913 in the center of Helsinki. The building still exists. It's a very charming building, but it was not built to be an art museum, and it really limited severely what was possible to show. So it was in 2012 that the board of the foundation decided that we need new premises. Also, the endowment had been well taken care of, so there was a little bit of money available. So we started to look at this building. This building is called Lasipalatsi, the Glass Palace. It's exactly in the center of Helsinki. It was built in 1936 as a kind of extremely modern shopping and entertainment center. It was supposed to serve the Olympic Games that were supposed to take place in 1940. Then, we were otherwise occupied at that time, and the games took place in 1952. But this was one of the sort of most remarkable buildings in Helsinki in the 30s. Very, very important for people in Helsinki. Everybody has memories of this building, but it had fallen in disrepair, and it had become a bit of a problem for the city government. This is a nice picture. It's actually from the year the building was completed, 1936. One reason that we became so interested in this building is, you see the letters HBL on the left-hand side. That's the logo of the newspaper that Amos Anderson owned, that the foundation still owns. It's not a good business anymore, but still. So this building is very close to where he used to live and where he used to work. So there's a kind of spiritual proximity. It is a very nice building, but it was not possible to turn this 1930s modernist architectural masterpiece into a new kind of art museum. So we had to build an extension. But the city plan is very strict. It was not possible to build an extension overground. The only possibility was to build an extension underground. Fortunately, behind the Lasipalatsi building, there is a square, a courtyard, which in the 1930s and actually until the 1990s served as a bus station, as you can see. So 5 years ago, it was just an empty place with some cafe terraces. And we thought that perhaps we could build under this courtyard, under the square. And it turned out that there was actually nothing there. Most of Helsinki is already excavated. There are all kinds of underground spaces, but not here. So we contacted our architects, the firm JKMM. It's a Finnish firm. They are becoming famous. They were not so famous when we contacted them, but now they are really getting a name in the architectural circles. So here you see what the square looked like when our project started. And here you see how we decided we would dispose of the space. So the gray areas are museum space. What's especially remarkable is the triangular space at the end. This is a really big movie theater, a cinema. The last preserved big 1930s kind of Art Deco movie theater in Helsinki. And that has become our kind of multi-function hall, auditorium, also working again as a movie theater. But it's a space for all kinds of events, like for instance, this talk, if it would be at Amos Rex, it would be in that auditorium. Then in the white areas, there is the restaurant, there are bars, cafes, shops, all essential things for the total experience. It's for us very important that an art museum is not only the exhibition space, but that it's a total experience. It includes the restaurants, the bars. Then you want to shop a postcard or something else, that's also possible. And then what is so special about Amos Rex is the way how it's part of the structure of the city, that we will get more into that later on. Then at the right side, there are the offices, which are far too small, but that's the way it usually is. And then the big block under the square is the exhibition space. So for our architect and our leading architect, Asmo Jaaksi, the big challenge was how to make something which is underground visible in the urban space. When you do build a new art museum, even if you have to hide it underground, you don't want to hide it completely. It had to be somehow visible on the surface. So this is his first sketch, and when I show the next slide, you will understand it a little bit better. The art museum, we knew pretty precisely what we wanted. We wanted a really big, flexible, open space. A little bit the kind of space that you have here at Manege. Huge, open and flexible. So we wanted to minimize the presence of fixed walls. We wanted to have just a huge open space which could then be modeled according to the needs of every exhibition. The way to cover a huge open space without walls, of course, it's the cupola, it's the dome. That's the traditional way. So, huge domes it became. And the great idea of Asmo Jaaksi was that the domes would not be hidden, but that they would show on the surface of the square and form this funny, very sort of playful urban space, new kind of urban landscape. Another thing that was very important for us was that when you go underground, you don't really have the feeling of going underground. We didn't want to have the kind of little bit, oppressive feeling like sliding down into the metro. And we wanted to keep the contact with the daylight, with the outside. So skylights were very important, even if the skylights have to be covered because most exhibitions are a little bit sensitive for daylight. But still, they had to be there. So more of Asmo's sketches here. And one special thing was that the skylights are oriented so that you can see different details from the old building through them. it's also possible from outside to look inside. And that's something that people enjoy doing. There's often somebody who is waving at the skylight at the people inside. So here, more detailed drawings already. So there are two floors underground. The upper floor is the exhibition floor, and then there is a technical floor under it. You know, in an art museum you need at least as much technical space as exhibition space. And the room for the ventilation machinery is just huge. It's incredibly big. It must be quite huge here as well. So this is the exhibition floor. We have about 2,000 square meters of exhibition space, mainly one open space. It can be subdivided. At the moment it is divided into two different spaces. And then we have three smaller spaces that you see there. And the space with the letter B is the education workshop, which is a very, very important space, as art education is really at the core of what we do, and young audiences are very important for us. C is the lobby, which is too small, but well, you know, art museums usually are always too small. Here you are fortunate in perhaps having enough space at Manege, about. But we don't have enough space, which is a little bit ironic as it's newly built, but it had to be fit into this area between the wings of the old building. What was very fortunate was the logistics access, which is here. This is a pre-existing lorry terminal, so that we just extended it a little bit and could build a really, really ideal logistics entrance. So the aim was to build an extremely flexible space, which means that there is a technical grid both in the floor and in the ceiling. So all those points are points where you have all the data cables, the electrical plugs, all the technical installations, and where you can also fix poles that support the temporary walls that are needed for many exhibitions. So we started building in 2013. We started planning in 2013. We started building in 2016, and it became ready in 2018. So at this point, it was almost ready, as you see. The main dome had been cast, and it looks so beautiful, this bare concrete surface. But unfortunately, we were not building a church. We couldn't leave it like that. We had to cover it with all the technical installations. It was a really very challenging building site. It was, very challenging both to plan, both to realize. It's difficult to excavate in the middle of a big city. And we had an extremely strict budget. It was completely financed by the foundation, but there was only 50 million euros for the project. And money is such a relative thing. of course 50 million euros is a really big sum, but big contemporary art museums usually cost a lot more. Usually with this kind of building we are talking about 150. So it's a relative thing. So now, at this point, the big dome was being covered with these kind of discs that have both a technical function. They cover the technical installations behind them. They have an acoustic function and, of course, also an aesthetic function. They are of aluminium and they are perforated. The idea of the architect was that they would be covered with a white fabric. But actually the space is a little bit more flexible than the architect imagined. We have been both using the discs without any cover, and we have been changing the cover for different colors for different sorts of exhibitions. The floor, the black floor that you see, it's composed of cubes of wood, pine wood. It is the kind of floor that you used to have in old factories in the 19th century. It's a very durable floor and also very flexible, as you often have to attach things in the floor. So then if you break one cube, you just replace it. It has been varnished black, and what we do realize now is that it's impossible to keep clean. So we are going to make the surface a little bit easier to clean. It's going to look more or less the same, but it will probably not be completely as matte as it is now. You know, there are always things you realize with new buildings when you have been using them for a couple of months. It's never perfect, exactly the way it's designed. So here you see a little bit of detail of the ceiling structure. The dome itself, it's cast in concrete. There were very, very careful calculations about its durability. The diameter is 30 meters, so it's really huge. So there were two teams of engineers doing the calculations and checking the calculations of the other team. So we are pretty confident that it will hold. It better do. I will show you some pictures of the building site if we have time, but let's go directly to the opening. We opened in September, and September of last year, and we opened with an exhibition by the Japanese collective Team Lab. They make the most incredible immersive projections in the world. They make a kind of virtual reality that you can experience freely in the space without any headgear or, these kind of technical appliances. Freely with your ordinary senses, and what is very important, together with other people, not isolated by headgear like with the usual kind of virtual reality. The biggest piece in their installation was this thing which was site-specific. The space itself was the starting point of making this work. It was called Vortex, and it filled the biggest hall under the large dome, and it was really an incredible experience. A photo is just a distant echo of what it was. It's a pity that it cannot be realized anywhere else. It really needs this space to work. It was a tremendous success. We had 270,000 visitors. We had to limit the amount of people that we could have in the space at one time. So that's otherwise the number of visitors would have been much larger. So we had queues of, at worst, queues of 500 meters outside. And it was very fortunate that it was such a success because the budget was horrendous. We had 200 of the most high-end projectors that you could find in the world. And we had rows and rows and rows of supercomputers. Realizing this kind of another world in reality, it needs a lot of technical equipment. And of course, lots of very, very talented software designers. TeamLab it's a big collective. There are about 500 members, and most of them are really very young, and they are just incredible people. Very nice to work with as well. There were 4 works in this exhibition, and the first one that you entered was called the Graffiti Nature, and it was an extremely interactive thing. It was really completely created by the audience. So you could draw your own animal and scan it, and then it entered this jungle. And when you put your hand on the wall, magic, real magic started happening. And well, kids went completely wild here. They just loved it. But not only kids, we had really all age groups in the audience. The thing with this space, this very special kind of space, is that it's really most suited for the kind of total installations that require a big, flexible open space. And so that is pretty much what we are trying to specialize in. So at the moment, we have the exhibition of the Dutch artist group or artist duo, Studio Drift, Lonneke Gordijn and Ralph Nauta and their team. And the main piece of this exhibition is the drifter that you see here. It's a huge block of concrete which is floating freely in the air. It really is. Don't ask me how it's possible. I'm not going to tell you. So this is one of the points about this work of art. There are thousands of theories going around how it's possible, but it's meant to remain a wonder. And it's possible. It's a pity that I don't have a video with it, because the thing is that it's not just floating in one place, it makes a round. It floats around in the space freely. It's also a very temperamental thing. It's a little bit like a living being, and it is very moody, and it has not always been really behaving like we wished it would have behaved, but now for 3 weeks it has been very kind and very, very cooperative, and we hope that it will stay like this for 1 month still, until the end of the exhibition. There are also other works by Studio Drift, which are also very interesting. In another part of the space, it's now subdivided into two. Usually we have only one exhibition at a time. But now we have two which have a dialogue between themselves. Both are really about, how reality can be very surreal. So we have the first exhibition of the greatest surrealist, René Magritte, the first exhibition ever in Finland. It's a really great exhibition. Very, very glad and very proud to find the poster here at Manege when I came in. It's a retrospective exhibition. There are about 80 works, and we are especially proud to have many works from the late 1920s when Magritte discovered surrealism and when he initiated all his main themes. And there are many works in this exhibition that are shown for the first time in public ever. Many works from private collections that have never been shown in public before. So Studio Drift and Magritte are open till May 19. You're very, very welcome if you have the opportunity to come to Helsinki. This painting is one of my favorites in the show, a very melancholy painting in a way. It's called the Philosopher's Lamp, and it's also a self-portrait of Magritte. And there's his famous pipe there as well. So I promised I would explain a little bit more about the new kind of urban landscape. So this Amos Rex Square is really the piece of Amos Rex that perhaps most of all creates the identity of the whole institution. And this particular photograph has now really made a tour of the world. It was even printed on the first page of the New York Times and so on. And it really is a pretty incredible space. And the very, very nice thing is that people do enjoy it, really. We were not sure how the public would receive this. So when we took away the fences and we saw that people just rushed there and started playing around on the mounds, it was a really good feeling. Another view of the square, and here you see the campanile, the chimney, which is a kind of architectural anchor, a kind of landmark in the middle of Amos Rex. But it's not only a kind of landmark, it is very much in function. Well, it used to be the chimney, there was the furnace there used to be, but now both incoming air and outgoing air enter through the chimney, so it's extremely much in use. And there's an emergency exit. through it as well, at the base. As I was telling you, it's possible to look in through the skylight, and there's usually always somebody there looking in. It's really funny. You have to be a little bit careful there, but you have to be careful everywhere. And the mounds are a little bit like the cliffs by the seaside. You can play around there and enjoy yourself, but of course you have to be careful. Still, the forms are kind of gentle, and it's you really do notice if you go too close to somewhere where you can slide badly or so. Of course, there are some people who take unnecessary risks, but that's life. So I think we had the same beautiful weather in Helsinki today as here. Well, we are very close. So this is, I think, what it pretty much looked like today as well. Some pictures from the interior. This staircase, it's at the junction of the old part and the new part. And it's a nice architectural detail with the window on top. And it's also important with this transparency in both in the old building and the new building. So this is from the lobby. The detail that you see through the skylight is the kind of surrealistic staircase on the facade of the movie theater. It's the staircase that goes to the projector room. It had to be built like that in the 30s because of the fire safety regulations. This is a nice picture taken by a drone in the evening of the mounds and the skylights. It was supposed to be the last picture, but I have some in reserve if there's still time. Let's look through them fast. So we haven't seen much of the old Lasipalatsi. So this is the main entrance. There's a party going on the terrace. This is the beautiful old staircase going in from the lobby up to the lobby of the cinema, which is a really beautiful space. One of the most beautiful spaces of early Finnish modernist architecture. A perfect space for openings and cocktail parties and all kinds of events. This is the movie theater, which is called Rex. So the name, Amos Rex, it's composed of two parts. Amos, the name of the founder, and then Rex. The movie theater has always been called Rex, and of course it means king. And Amos Anderson was not a modest person. So up there in on his cloud, I think he's happy. We hope that he's happy. Then we also wanted the name to be short and to be the same in every language so that we don't have to translate it. Amos Rex is Amos Rex, even in Japanese. So the shop is extremely important. We are not completely happy with the interior decoration there. So it will be, I think it will be a little bit redone in the near future. What works is that forest of lamps in the ceiling, that's funny. But for instance, these light wooden boxes block too much the space. It's pretty tight space anyway. You know, no, it's never perfect at the first try. So I promised you some photos of the building site. So this is the first digging. The man who is digging, it was the former director of the foundation. He's very fond of caterpillars. He collects them. But he was a very, very good banker. He very much made this museum possible. So we dug pretty deep, and it was a challenge to keep the old building from not falling into the hole. And it was especially a challenge to keep the chimney standing in the excavation. So it was standing on a kind of metal scaffolding. Here we are close to finishing. So the armature of the domes is being made. Here's more detail of that. And yeah, let's see if this works. Yes. So there we are. So that was done in 24 hours in the summer of 2017. You could see the sun going up and the sun, well, not completely going down. It's the same white nights in Helsinki as here. That was my presentation. So now I think we have a little bit of time for some questions.
Спасибо большое, Кай. Друзья, важной частью нашей программы является то, что вы можете задать свои собственные вопросы и пообщаться с Каем. Если можно, я просто от себя попрошу Кая в двух словах еще рассказать нам все-таки о составлении выставочной и публичной программы Amos Rex, что нового вы придумали и какие ближайшие планы. Спасибо большое.
And the program, well, all kinds of exciting workshops are going to take place. But for the moment, our sort of education people are extremely occupied just taking care of the audience, of just just being conversation guides and so on, just being hosts. We were expecting something like, we were expecting, let's say, 150,000 visitors for the first exhibition, and it was double. And when we thought that it would be great to have perhaps 200,000 during the first year of activity, we are now close to 400,000. So it has meant a lot of adapting. So there is a lot of workshop activity, but not as much as we had initially planned. But about coming exhibitions, so this summer there will be a group exhibition with Icelandic, Swedish and Finnish artists. And then this autumn there will be an exhibition based on our own collection. It will be featuring the painter Birger Karlstedt. That's an unknown name to you, and not such a very well-known name in Finland either, but he was the painter who introduced abstract painting to Finland in the 1920s. Pretty late, but still. And then at the beginning of 2020, we will have an exhibition that is especially important for us and that we are already very proud of. It's called Generation 2020. It's an exhibition concept that is going to return every 3 years. So we did the first one as the last exhibition in the old building. So this generation exhibition, it is for artists who are between 15 and 23. So really young, really very young. You send it's a kind of jury-based exhibition. So the artists who want to participate send their proposal, their entries, and then there is a committee that chooses a number of participants, and we have 500 entries, and we are in the process of making the selection. And the level is astonishingly high. It's incredibly high. So it's going to be a really very good exhibition. The first one was already that. This one is going to be perhaps even better. We think it's really very important when we are focusing on young people that it's not only of making exhibitions that perhaps might attract them, but also to give young people the possibility to show what they are themselves doing. Also in the jury that makes the selection, we have artists who participated, who are still very young, who participated in the prior generation exhibition. Then in the summer of 2020, we will have a collaboration between a modern Finnish composer and painter. It's going to be a kind of walk in a soundscape, in a color and soundscape, also very interactive. So focusing on the young audience, and then making these kind of total installations that the space is so well adapted for, and having lots of activities in the workshop area and sort of interacting with the public. That's what we are trying to do, hoping to do.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm here. First of all, thank you.
Thank you.
Мне говорили, I should be able to ask in Russian, so мой вопрос такой, в принципе, отчасти был отвечен. Хотела просто немножко более уточнить. Почему именно начали с работ зарубежных групп, таких масштабных, Если вот сейчас было озвучено, что в будущем планируется именно фокус на молодых, но все же национальных юных артистов, или, может быть, даже не юных, как летом. Почему именно начали не с национальной выставки?
We were considering of having Finnish artists as inaugural exhibition, but we wanted the first exhibition to be something that would completely surprise our public, and also to be something which would indicate one possible way into the future of the visual culture. And nobody else in the world goes as far in this kind of immersive projections as Team Lab. Every year, every summer, we are going to focus on Finnish and in neighboring areas. So every year there will be a focus on local art scene.
Второй вопрос, может быть, связан немножко с моим негативным опытом, потому что я пыталась попасть в музей зимой именно в те огромные очереди, которые уже озвучили. И у меня до сих пор остается простой вопрос. Это очень модерновый музей, в котором нельзя заранее онлайн купить билет. С чем это связано? И стоять 1,5 часа на морозе было как-то тоже странно.
You are one of the very many people who had this bad experience. Now, we were not expecting, such a huge success. We hoped that people would discover us and that we would have, lots of visitors, but not such huge amount of visitors. And the space was limited, and it's not putting up time slots and the sale of tickets that you actually can enter with during the net is not completely simple. You have to think it carefully through so that it really works. So we are implementing it now. Now for Magritte, you can buy a ticket for a certain day that then you don't have to queue for buying the ticket that day. So we have it now, but we were not able to put it in practice during Team Lab. I'm sorry.
So thank you for your presentation. It was quite interesting. And I have a question about your dorms in the museum. Ironically, I was in Amos Rex exactly 1 week ago, and I noticed that there was not light through the dorms in the exhibition hall. And I think it's quite logical because it's exhibition halls, there are lots of pictures and so on, but it's very interesting. It's a big dorm and there could be light. And I'm studying architecture, I'm very interested in it. Is it a fault of architects or not? Thank you.
Do you mean that, thank you for the question. Do you mean that the skylight was covered?
Yes, it was closed.
In Magritte exhibition, we have to keep it covered because there are works on paper in the exhibition, so that we have to maintain the 50 lux lighting there. So it's impossible to have daylight entering the Magritte exhibition. But the other skylight, the skylight for Studio Drift, that one is open, and the skylights in the lobby. So we have only one of them covered. But very often, either you have works that are too sensitive for daylight, or you have projections that cannot, support daylight at all. So unfortunately, quite often you have to have the skylights covered, as you have here now.
А насколько было легко или сложно в реализации таких смелых архитектурных идей? Ну вот у нас в России с этим сложности большие, а как с этим обстоит у вас? И вообще есть такие прекрасные картинки там, детей счастливых, играющих там. Ну, все ли были, общественность вся была счастлива или были какие-то непонимания, да, вашей идеи?
We were also surprised that such daring architecture was so unanimously accepted. There are some people who are worried about the safety of the mounds, that think that people are so silly that they will hurt themselves, that they can't consider the mounds as cliffs by the seaside. So there is a minority who think that we should put fences around and, prohibit the mounds from the public, which would be such a pity. We rely on people being sensible and being careful. But that is a really small minority. So on the whole, we have been, the daring architecture was extremely well received. And of course, what made it possible was that the city authorities, the city planning authorities were also from the beginning very positive. What, of course, helped in making it so well received by the population in Helsinki is that it is completely privately financed. Taxpayers' money has not been used at all. That makes it, of course, easier for people to accept. It's a gift for the public.
Добрый вечер. Скажите, пожалуйста, есть ли возможности в музее для молодых художников и как происходит общение молодых художников с музеем? Спасибо.
Of course, the main opportunity for young artists is this generation exhibition. But there are also workshop things going on, and we really try to maintain a dialogue with the young artists and art scene in Helsinki in various ways. But of course, the most concrete example is this exhibition that I was talking about.
Скажите, пожалуйста, вы вот интересно рассказали о Амосе Андерсоне, а у вас там коллекция есть, помещение с коллекцией, с его картинами. Они из прежнего его дома, в котором я тоже вот бывала. У вас это навсегда будет вот эта демонстрация этих картин из его дома? Или что-то снова, когда отреставрируют дом, все возвратится на круги своя? Какие перспективы замечательной коллекции?
Thank you. Yes, it's very good that we don't forget about the collection. So, Mr. Anderson was not so much a collector, but still he left a collection with about 300 paintings and sculptures. It's a very mixed collection. Most of his contemporary art he bought more because he was a friend of the artists than because the pieces would have been of any particular quality. So some of them are very nice, and some of them are hardly ever going to come out from the storage. The most interesting part of his art collection is the Old Master collection. He was very interested in Baroque and Renaissance religious art, mainly from Italy. That part of the collection is also of mixed quality. There are very few in that collection that you would find in the Hermitage, but some of these paintings are really very nice. And anyway, it's a very personal collection. So it's very interesting from that point of view. And we are going to reopen his home in a couple of years' time as a kind of interior museum. And there is also a private chapel in this home. So there you will be, in a couple of years' time, you will be able to see part of his art collection. And we are also renovating his summer residence, which is on the seaside near Turku, which is a nice place. It's a kind of big dacha. And part of his collection is going to be then there as well. The main part of the collection of the museum was formed by my predecessor, Bengt von Bonsdorf, who was the director during 40 years. So I'm only the second director, and of course the first one of Amos Rex, which is a really new thing. But still we consider the old Amos Anderson Art Museum as very much part of the history. And so what he formed is one of the major collections in Finland of Finnish art from the 1950s to the 1990s. It's quite an interesting collection, but of course very much in storage, like unfortunately all museum collections. Then we have some interesting donations and depositions. We have the post-impressionist collection of the Art Nouveau architect Sigurd Frosterus. That's the perhaps internationally most important part of our collections, and a selection is on permanent display in a separate space in Amos Rex. And the painter Birger Karlstedt that we are going to highlight this autumn, he left all his production that he hadn't sold, and he didn't sell much to us. So we have thousands of his works, literally thousands. It's a bit of a problem. It takes a lot of space in storage, but it's a very, very interesting material. And the exhibition this autumn is based on this material. So he left us really everything, even the fur coats of his wife and so on. So there's absolutely everything.
Добрый вечер, спасибо большое за лекцию. У меня вопрос. Проводите ли вы исследования вашей аудитории, и есть ли у вас данные о том, кем является ваш среднестатистический посетитель? Также, как вы расширяете аудиторию, и как вы добились такого успеха по посещаемости? Спасибо.
Yes, we are trying to research our audience. We are making this sort of first really serious questionnaires and studies of it now this year. We have been really too busy to make it sort of in a serious way so far. But of course we know for instance of the Team Lab exhibition that we have lots of children, lots of visitors between 18 and 30. We have a special price for it's free under 18, and it's very cheap under 18 and 30. Then it gets more expensive after that. But lots of people in Finland have something called a museum card. When they buy that, then they have free entrance to the museums. So, so far we know mainly about the audience through what kind of tickets they have. And then we also have an ongoing, you can push buttons when you go out from Amos Rex and tell how happy you are or not. It's not extremely reliable because the unhappy button is the one that looks funniest for kids. So they are all the time pushing on that, and well, every one of them, but especially on the red one, which is the nicest one. So that's what I meant, that we are going to do the first serious study with sort of real questions this year. Well, the success, I think we try to show the kind of contemporary art that, well, as I said, surprises and somehow engages, and that gives some kind of special experience for people. It's, well, to be completely honest, I want to show the kind of things that I enjoy myself. And so far it seems to work up to a point.
Благодарю за вашу лекцию. Вопрос в продолжение предыдущего вопроса. Говоря вот об этом успехе, может быть, вне контекста того, что музей новый, да, и вы показывали очень необычные для города выставки, используете ли вы именно в пиаре, в продвижении какие-то новаторские, может быть, способы, и можете вы, в принципе, рассказать о продвижении музея, потому что это достаточно, как бы, вообще в пиаре, в маркетинге достаточно такая своеобразная, ну, как бы, в общем, своеобразная вещь. Благодарю.
Well, we use the social media a lot. Personally, I don't exist. You do not find me on the social media. Nowhere. I'm not even in LinkedIn, and it's starting to become a problem. But Amos Rex is extremely active. Well, I'm exaggerating. It should be more active, but still social media is one of the main channels. Then we try to keep very close relationship with media, work together with media, papers, TV, so on. And then we have some media sponsors, so corporate sponsorships with media houses, and this enables us to use, for instance, digital media in advertising, so that we have a moving image in the cityscape in Helsinki and so on. Things that we would perhaps not be able to afford without these sponsorship deals. But social media is very important. And here, when we are speaking about social media, it's not even so much what we do ourselves, it's what our audience does. So Instagram was completely filled with pictures of both the exhibition and the mounds and that's going on all the time. So there's a kind of snowball effect with this.
Thank you very much for letting us a bit behind the scenes of Amos Rex. And when I come to Helsinki, it amuses me that there are at least 4 grand museums on one spot. So how do you live? Do you coexist, compete, or go into cooperate somehow?
We collaborate. So we think it's a great advantage that we are so many and really close together. So Kiasma is on the other side of the street. Athenaeum is 100 meters that way. Ham is 100 meters that way. And then there is the Kunsthalle very close. And now there is the big library, which is worth visiting. It's also very close. And the music hall. It's a little bit like in the Museumsinsel in Berlin or the Museumsquartier in Vienna. And we don't feel that we are competing, really. We are collaborating. We think that together we are stronger. And people who visit one museum, they tend to visit the other one too. So together we make it much more worthwhile to come to Helsinki and to see exhibitions, I think. We also, we try to coordinate our programming. So we are having regular meetings with the colleagues in the neighboring museums.
Опять же, в продолжении, наверное, предыдущего вопроса, спасибо тоже девушке за него. Пока что у меня в сознании создается такой бленд совершенно разных культур, медиа, которые вы на своей площадке миксуете совершенно невероятным образом. Вы продолжите быть открытыми ко всем разным институтам искусства или все-таки сформируется какой-то единый концепт, какой-то единый образ? Вот Amos Rex — это вот про это, или Amos Rex — это про такие-то принципы.
Especially people from the art world, they very often find us a little bit confusing. They think it's difficult to understand that we are showing both extremely contemporary art and 20th century art like Magritte, and even we have plans of making an exhibition about ancient Egypt. So this is also a tradition which goes a long way back, that we find it interesting that to combine old and new. There is no future without the past. But this is sometimes I think people find that the profile of Amos Rex is a bit blurry, as it's not a straightforward sort of usual kind of contemporary art museum. But I think it's very important not to be just another contemporary art museums. In Europe, they are pretty much clones of each other, and we are not interested in being one clone more. We want really to be different and very open for all kinds of new things and also old things. I don't know if that was a good answer, but well, we are tricky.
Спасибо большое, Кай. Очень интересная презентация. Кай, всегда рада видеть вас и ваших коллег в Манеже. И надеемся, что мы будем делать совместные проекты с Amos Rex, выставки, публичные программы. Друзья, проект New Now сделает небольшой перерыв в мае. Мы ждем вас в июне. Я сделала небольшое объявление. 11 июня в рамках программы New Now к нам едет Мануэль Рабате, директор музея Лувра Абу-Даби. Ждем вас. Спасибо.
Спасибо большое.
Спасибо, Кай.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.